Have you ever wondered why women feel undecisive even when they're highly capable in every other area of life? Stay tuned for a powerful reframe that may completely change how you understand uncertainty and self trust. Welcome back to the Resilient MD, the podcast and YouTube channel where we have honest conversations about medicine, burnout, resilience, and how to care for others without losing ourselves in the process. I'm Dr. Anna McDowell, certified life coach, allergist, and your host. Today's episode is about something many women quietly criticize themselves for: being undecisive, not knowing what they want, taking too long to make decisions, changing their minds, feeling uncertain about what direction to take. And because we live in a culture that glorifies certainty, speed, and confidence, many women begin to believe there's something wrong with them when clarity doesn't come quickly. But what if the issue is not undecisiveness? What if the real issue is something deeper and much more understandable? What if you're simply untuned? Not broken, not incapable of making decisions, just disconnected from your own internal signals after years of prioritizing everyone else's needs, expectations, timelines, and comfort above your own. And today, I want to explore the difference between impulsive action and true atonement. Because before meaningful change can happen externally, there's usually a quieter internal process that has to happen first. Learning to hear yourself again. There's a particular image of success that many high achieving women internalize early in life. The successful woman is confident, efficient, clear, productive, certain of what she wants. She makes decisions quickly, she knows her goals, she moves forwards decisively. And while confidence can absolutely be healthy, many women start measuring themselves harshly whenever they feel uncertainty. If they hesitate, they assume, I'm overthinking, I'm weak, I should know by now. But here's what often gets missed: you cannot make aligned decisions when you are disconnected from yourself. And many women, especially women physicians, have spent years becoming highly attuned to everyone except themselves. You've learned to notice patient needs, family needs, institutional expectations, emotional dynamics in any room, what keeps things running smoothly. But somewhere along the way, your own internal signals became quieter. Not because they disappeared, but because they were consistently deprioritized. So when someone asks, what do you want? Many women immediately freeze. Not because they are incapable of knowing, but because they haven't been listening inward for a very long time. One of the reasons this can feel confusing is because highly capable women often function extraordinarily well externally. You can lead teams, run clinics, care for families, manage crises. You can make high stakes medical decisions quickly and effectively. And yet, when it comes to your own life, you may feel strangely uncertain. That disconnect can feel embarrassing. You may think, how can I confidently manage complex situations all day long, but struggle to know what I want for myself? But personal attunement is different from professional competence. Professional competence is often built around data, training, protocols, expectations, and external feedback. Attunement is different. Attunement requires internal listening, emotional honesty, self awareness, noticing subtle reactions and preferences. And many women have simply not had the space to cultivate that relationship with themselves consistently. I remember for years thinking that small personal decisions simply weren't important. For example, when someone would ask me where I wanted to eat, my automatic response was almost always, "Oh, I don't care. Whatever you want is fine." And I genuinely believed that. I used to tell myself, I make important decisions all day long for patients, staff, and complex medical situations. I don't have the mental space to spend energy deciding what restaurant I want to go to. It doesn't really matter. And on the surface, that sounded logical, efficient even. But over time, I realized something deeper was happening. It wasn't that I truly had no preference. It was that I had become so accustomed to prioritizing everyone else's needs, schedules, and comforts that I had stopped checking in with my own preference altogether. I genuinely didn't know what I wanted to eat. Not because the decision was too small to matter, but because I had lost the habit of asking myself what I wanted in the first place. And that realization was surprisingly emotional because it showed me how easy it is for capable women to slowly disconnect from themselves, not through dramatic sacrifice, but through hundreds of tiny moments of self dismissal that become automatic over time. When you repeatedly override your own internal signals, something important begins to happen. Your clarity weakens. Not because your intuition is gone, but because your nervous system learns that your preferences are not the priority. Think about how often women automatically ask themselves, what works best for everyone else? What causes the least disruption? What will disappoint people the least? Before ever asking, what feels true for me? What do I actually want? What feels aligned? Over time, this creates a kind of internal static. Your wants become harder to access because they are consistently interrupted by obligation, guilt, people pleasing, performance, fear of disappointing others. And eventually, many women interpret this internal disconnection as undecisiveness. One of the things I think we need to normalize more is that thoughtful decision making often takes time, especially during periods of identity change. But many women become uncomfortable the moment uncertainty appears. They rush towards action because uncertainty feels intolerable. So instead of listening deeply, they force clarity, they seek certainty externally, make reactive decisions just to relieve that discomfort. We don't realize that relief is not the same as alignment. Fast decision can sometimes become a way of escaping discomfort instead of understanding it. And this is especially important during transitions. Because when your identity is evolving, your internal world needs time to reorganize. You are not meant to instantly know who you are becoming. This is where the real work begins, not with action, with atonement. Atonement means slowing down enough to notice how your body responds to certain environment, what conversations energize or drain you, what creates constriction versus expansion, what consistently creates resistance inside you. And this requires a different pace than many women are used to, because attunement cannot happen in constant urgency. It requires pause, reflection, emotional honesty, enough quiet to hear subtle signs. This is why many women suddenly begin hearing themselves more clearly only after life slows down. Not because they became different overnight, but because the noise decreased enough for their own voice to become audible again. Before we move on, I want to pause for a moment. I'm curious, have you been feeling exhausted, discouraged, or frustrated and not quite sure why? Are you quietly wondering if this is just how life in medicine has to be? Well, I see you. You don't have to give up on yourself or your dreams. And the good news is that you don't have to figure it all out alone. I built a 6-week one-on-one coaching program designed to help women physicians gently remove the barriers keeping them stuck and rediscover clarity, balance, and purpose. It is called the Resilient MD, just like the podcast and YouTube channel. If you're ready, you can begin today. Schedule your free clarity call. The link is in the show's notes. One of the most important parts of this process is recognizing that your internal signals often speak quietly, not dramatically. You may notice tension before certain commitments, relief when plans are canceled, heaviness around specific environments, energy around certain ideas or conversations. These are not random reactions, they are information. Your body often recognizes alignment and misalignment before your mind fully explains them. But many women have been taught to distrust these signals, to rationalize them away, to prioritize logic over inner knowing, to keep functioning despite what they feel. So, part of the season is learning to take your own internal responses seriously again, not impulsively, but respectfully. Now, an important nuance here: not every uncomfortable feeling means something is wrong. Sometimes growth feels uncomfortable, sometimes vulnerability feels scary. So, the goal is not to react immediately to every emotion. The goal is to become more discerning. Fear often feels sharp and urgent. Misalignment often feels chronic and heavy. Fear tends to fluctuate. Misalignment tends to repeat. This is why deep listening matters, because attunement helps you distinguish temporary discomfort from persistent internal friction. And that distinction changes everything. The Find Your Wings journey is not about reinventing yourself overnight. It's about becoming more honest with yourself over time. And honesty requires listening with curiosity, not the kind of listening that immediately turns into action plans and life changes, but the kind of listening that says, let me pay attention before I decide. Let me understand before I react. Let me reconnect with myself before I choose the next direction. This is not weakness. This is wisdom, my friends. If you've been calling yourself undecisive, I want to gently offer another possibility. Maybe you're not undecisive. Maybe you've simply spent so many years tuning into everyone else that you're still learning how to tune back into your own self. And that process takes time. You do not need to force clarity. You do not need to rush decisions. You do not need to prove certainty before you're ready. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is pause long enough to hear your own internal signals, because your wings do not grow from pressure, they grow from attunement. Remember, my wings grow when I listen. If this episode resonated with you, consider sharing it with a colleague who might need this reminder today. Sometimes the right message reaches us through someone who simply thought of us. Next week, we will explore the quiet truths many women physicians are afraid to admit out loud. But before you go, don't forget to grab the free People Pleasing in Medicine reflection guide. It is a gentle space to slow down, reflect, and reconnect with yourself again. You can download it at the link in the description below. And if this episode was helpful for you, could you do me a quick favor? Leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or your favorite platform, and like this video on YouTube. It only takes a second and helps this podcast so much. We all say this, but it really does help. So I really would appreciate if you do that. Now, thank you for being here. Thank you for your honesty. And thank you for allowing yourself to reconnect with the voice inside you that may have been quiet for a very long time. I'm Dr. Anna McDowell, a resilient MD just like you. I'll see you next week.